Well, hi, everybody. It's Lori coming back for week 4. You've now completed 3 weeks of your Automatic Body program. Here is webinar number 4 to go with the beginning of your 4th week. All right, so I hope things are going well for you. I hope you're starting to feel better by putting these small changes on top of each other, compounding them, tiny small changes. Let's get right into a little review of last week. You were to track the water that you're drinking, right? It was all about hydration, and this is a key piece. And it was to be no less than 8 glasses every day. And we saw a chart where, according to your weight, it really showed how much water you were supposed to be drinking, how many glasses, and it's not 8 for most of us. I don't weigh that much, but I exercise so much that I have to drink a lot of extra water than what would be in that chart. So we talked about some strategies. Drinking 1 glass in your bathroom before waking. Take water with you. You have to have a water bottle all the time, and it's got to become habit. You should look under the resources in your phone app or your website for Kim's cool detoxing water recipe. And really, you can just tone that down and not put as much as she puts in that detoxing, but have just a little bit of flavored water. All right, water, water, water. Okay, your food journals. You need to be continuing with putting down what you're eating, being aware, because we're making little changes in here. And here we talked about lean and clean foods, whether they're high calorie and high nutrition or low calorie and low nutrition, for you to kind of try and see where you can shift one of them maybe into a better category of, let's say, low calorie, high nutrition. Just one of your meals, right? Something that you're eating. And of course, you're skinny. Continue to use that skinny right now. Protein for breakfast. This comes from week 2. Taking protein for breakfast and 3 more times during the day. Minimum, and 30 grams. Okay, week 4. What's going on here? We're going to talk about how often you should eat and what proper intervals are, right? And this will have to do with sometimes how your gut feels and how lean and clean you can get it feeling, right? And you can. Often what is happening, we talked about that digestive system and water and how important it is. So, of course, drinking water is really key to feeling lean in your gut, not having a lot of gas and bloating going on. But it also has to do with how often you're eating, okay? And I'm also going to talk today about food labels. Hopefully help you understand how to read a food label, because the food industry can, trick us. I'll use the word. They can get us, right? They can grab us, but you need to learn to be label savvy in order to understand what they're doing. Let's get into it. All right. So remember, food is fuel in your body, and that metabolism is the fire or the furnace. Now, if you wait too long to put a log on the fire, that fire dies, right? That's the quantity. How often are you fueling the fire, right? The quantity. But if you have a fire and you put a wet log on it, well, it just squelches what's going on there, right? No more burning, lots of smoking and ugly stuff going on. That's the quality of the food that you're eating, right? If you have an exhausted fire, you haven't exhausted you. So, this is, again, your food journal. If you're putting in how you're feeling and you're noticing a pattern of I'm always tired at this time of the day, look at the quality of the food you ate 2 or 3 hours before, right? Maybe there was quantity and you're not eating enough. You didn't have protein 2 or 3 hours. You had an apple, or what I see so many times, a granola bar or yogurt alone, right? That's it. That's all that was eaten, right? That's quality, and you're right. It's killing your metabolism. Okay, so our body is the same way. We kind of what I explained here. We wait too long to eat, and your body goes into starvation mode. The fire slows down. It won't burn as fast, right? This is an innate protective mechanism that our body has, so it keeps itself alive. You stop burning. And this is people who are overweight and they eat literally like a bird. and they can't lose weight. And in fact, they're gaining weight. It's because their metabolism has slowed so much that they're not burning anything. Everything they eat gets stored as fat, right? And when you have the quality, so for example, as I said, you're just eating like foods like a carbohydrate source without protein. So an apple on its own, a granola bar, right? Again, sugar-loaded yogurts, right? And you'll learn today about labels to see if the yogurt you're buying is okay, right? But that'll create that sluggish body. But you're eating the right fuel at the right time, you get a roaring metabolism that you cannot stop, right? And that's when you just have the pounds melting off you, literally melting off you. Okay, so let's look at an example of a day of eating. So if you're up at 6:30 a.m., here could be an example of your schedule. At 7 a.m., you have a Nutri-Fuel, which is perfect, and you might have a banana, an apple, or a little something alongside that fuel, or you're having a protein breakfast, right? Fuel is protein, the Nutri protein shake. But protein, okay, then 9 a.m., so then you're going to have your skinny a little bit later, and your phone app tells you when to have it. 9:30 or 10 a.m., you're going to eat. And I don't call it a certain meal, but you're going to eat, right? And you're going to have protein along with something else. Okay, then at 12:30 or 1 p.m., you might eat again, right? In the afternoon, you'd have a skinny. At around 3:30 or 4, you might eat again. And maybe 5:30 to 6:30 to 7 p.m. is your last meal of the day, right? So really, I've eaten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in my day. The goal here is to be looking at every 3 hours you are eating something. And what's really cool is when your body starts healing itself, it will be able to give you the right signals. You're actually going to feel hungry. Not a craving for something like sugar or salty, fatty foods, but you're going to feel hungry. This is when you're eating the right quantity and the right amount. Now, as you're starting and you've increased your protein, many people tell me, I'm not hungry, I'm not hungry. You know what I say? It's okay. For sure, every 3 hours, eat again. And if you don't eat quite everything you prepare, it's okay, right? But you can't go 6 hours without eating. That is this week's goal, to be small meals, right? Now, you might be on a very different schedule than this, but the idea is around every 3 hours. Maybe it's 3.5, but you do not go past 3.5. You might eat every 2.5, right? If you're eating right appropriate amounts, smaller amounts, you're going to be hungry. It's really cool, right? It's a great thing to feel. And I know, people have told me, again, I can't eat that much. I can't eat that much. In the beginning, like this is still early. You've only done 3 weeks. We're only going into week 4. You have to continue with this to heal your metabolism, okay? So a couple of things here. Again, those portion sizes, 25 to 30 grams of protein, right? Don't eat all day. Have your little meal. It's like a mini meal. And eat it like within the 10 or 15 minutes. Don't leave it sit there and keep putting tiny little things in your mouth. That's not helping your metabolism. You need just a log on the fire. So eat what you prepared and be done. So no grazing, right? Plan ahead. This is something you cannot wing it, wing. If you're going to go and you're not taking any food with you to work, you're going to end up somewhere at a cafeteria or, right, they're not going to have what you need. And you know what, if you're feeling hungry, you're not going to make a good choice under hunger. Okay, so you have to be prepared. So now water and food goes with you. Okay, and it's more about keeping the fire going. You're not overloading the fire. It actually isn't a lot to eat. Okay, not when you're eating the right amount and the right type of food, quality and quantity. Okay, and again, your food journal, now tracking. This is where you're collecting this data to help you make the changes. You have to think of it, 1 week, I'm going to do this. I will test it. What I've done so far hasn't worked for me, so I'm going to try this. And this is again where I'm asking you, Put down what you believe and take up something else for 1 week. I'm giving you another option. Okay? It's up to you to use it. Okay? All right, so interval eating. Let's jump into reading a label. All right, so when you're reading a label, we look at fat and sugar content, mostly because in something that has a label on it, first off, the fat is not a good fat. It can be a trans fat. It can be a lot of saturated fat. And we have a whole section, week that we're going to talk on fats. But usually it's not a healthy fat. And of course, sugar. We're looking at those two things on a label, and then we're trying to figure out how big of, like, how much of the serving size is fat and sugar. Is it 50% is fat and sugar? Is it 80% of what you're eating is fat and sugar? We need to be careful of that, right? So you want to find foods that are 25, maybe to 30% fat and sugar combined of the serving size, okay? So like a quarter, 25%, a quarter or a third. Okay, so for example, there's 100 calories in one serving. Okay, 1/4 of that would be 25 calories. I take 25, times it by 4. It's equal to the calories in that, right? It's 25%. That's easy math, right? It's a quarter of it, okay? If it is greater than this, you need to put it back on the shelf. You have to stop bringing some of these things home. This is a tough one, okay? I get it. All right, and you know, I don't know, maybe you've heard this, right? But once on your lips, forever on your hips. And seriously, some of the packaged and processed foods out there, this is the truth. You may work longer, way longer than 12 weeks. You may work a year or two to get some toxins out of your body. It's like crazy what they're putting in foods these days for us to take in. Okay, so we just have to be careful. Okay, let's go a little into something specific. So in Canada, we have this ice cream called Ben & Jerry's. I just picked this. So the serving size is 280 calories. Now, what you have to understand is a serving size is not the whole container either. You know, a Ben & Jerry's container is one of those smaller containers you can hold in your hand. But a serving size, I'm actually not sure. Like, it's maybe a third, maybe a quarter of the container, right? So that's something to remember. Now, 25% of that, so I just take 280 divided by 4, it's 70. So when I go and look at this now, I've got to say, are the fat and sugar calories equal to 70? Because that would make it 25% fat and sugar. Okay, this is just math, right? You might have to watch this a couple times if you don't get it. Okay, so now I look on the label. So I find on the label, they try and trick us right away. First off, they give us the serving size in calories, which makes sense, but then they tell us there's 28 grams of sugar. Well, how many calories is that? I know there's 4 calories in a gram, so I have to do more math. Okay, 28 grams times 4 calories, that's 112 calories. Okay, so in this serving, there's 112 calories of sugar. So then I look at the fat, and again, they list the fat in grams. Some labels will give it to you in calories. You just have to look. Okay, but now I know there's 9 calories in 1 gram of fat. Okay, so those 14 grams of fat, that's 126 calories. This is a total of 238 calories of fat and sugar in that serving size. And again, remember I said a quarter of it, 25%, was 70. So, I mean, I can immediately see this is way over 25% fat and sugar, right? I don't even have to do any more math by taking 238 and timesing it by 4 to see if it's equal to the calorie size. This is way over, right? So, right, it's more than a quarter of 280, as I said, right? Okay, here is your formula to find this 25% fat and sugar. Now, you know, I do this very quickly now because I have it in my head and I've practiced. So all you do is at home, pull out a bunch of boxes, put them on the table and play around with this. You know, first off, you might need a pen and paper, right? But in a second, you can start looking at something and do some quick math and you can see right away, right? So here's what you need to remember. Every gram of sugar is 4 calories. So you always take the number of grams, you have to times it by 4, it gives you your calories of sugar. You have to turn it back into calories, okay, because the serving size is in calories. A gram of fat is 9 calories. Take the number of grams, times it, fat, times it by 9, you get your calories of fat. So you add your calories of fat and sugar together, and then you can take that number, and if you quickly times it by 4, and you see is it equal to the calories in the serving size, if it's equal, you know you're 25%, right? Because we're figuring out that it's 1/4 of the calories in the serving size, right? Just go back to the Ben & Jerry's example, or just like 100 calories. The 100 calories in a serving, well, you can only have 25 calories of sugar and fat combined. That's 1/4, okay? So that's a very quick way and math to look at a label to see if it's a lean label, right? You're going to be shocked by some of the things you thought were healthy foods, because on the front of the box, they can write anything. But on the label is where they're regulated. And so you have to go to that label. That's where you get the truth about the product. Now, there's something very important to know about labels. Ingredients matter, right? So this is the quality, right? So, for example, if I take a bag of frozen blueberries and I use this formula, well, there's not fat in the frozen blueberries, but the sugar content's going to be way over 25%. But does that mean a bag of frozen blueberries isn't a good food source? Not at all. It just tells you sugar, fruit is high in sugar, but it's also very high in nutrition, right? Another example is salmon. If you look at canned salmon and you look at the fat's going to be very high in a serving size. There won't be any sugar in it. There shouldn't be, of course, right? But the fat's going to be way over. And why is that? It's because salmon is a naturally high fat source protein. But the fat in the salmon is very healthy for us. It's an omega-3 fat. And so you want to bring that one home, even though it doesn't fit this label calculation. So you have to understand, right? If I go look at a bag of frozen veggies, even then, sometimes the sugar will be over, right? Depending on what type of vegetables are in there. Vegetables, yes, you're going to find sugar in them. You shouldn't find fat, but they do have sugar, right? They're a carbohydrate. There's a sugar in every carbohydrate, right? And so that doesn't mean you don't bring them home. It just means you need to understand the ingredients of the label. Okay? All right. Back now to automatic mind building, where we're talking about what's going on in our heads these days. So what do you believe again that it takes to win at the lean game? Luck, right? Are you still of the belief that you have to have lucky genes, right? You inherited something lucky. For me it was, gee, if my mom wouldn't have been such a great baker, that I would have gotten addicted to all her wonderful cookies and cinnamon buns and all those sweet things, right? That was me saying that sometimes. Why did I grow up in a house like that? Are you kidding me? It was a blessing, right? Now it's up to me to take responsibility for what I'm putting in my mouth and how much of it I put in my mouth, right? So, some people think it just takes this iron will and you've got to be stronger. And it's like you actually go to war with food. You can't do that. It's not about willpower. This is not about willpower, right? It doesn't last. Willpower doesn't last. So you have to remember that. I'm looking for a book here quickly that I have to read something from for you. Give me a second. Where are you? Nope. Might not find it here, guys. Sorry, but I know what it's about. Okay, so I'll go on. And again, lean people aren't lucky, right? Lean people aren't lucky. So there's a book, my book, The Business of the 21st Century. This is an amazing book. You should read it. You could get an online version of it. In here, it's written by Robert Kiyosaki, who's a pretty amazing financial guy. He was poverty, like lived out of his car with his wife, and I mean today they're multimillionaires, right? But he talks about, he says making money. He says, first of all, it doesn't take an education, right? It doesn't take an education, and he says if it doesn't take education, he says it's not about being born with money, right? That's not what it's about. And so he says, if it's not about having a break or having this really amazing education, what is it about? Right? What's it about to be successful? Right? And he's talking from a financial point of view, right? But he says, you have to, yes, it takes consistency and perseverance, right? That you continue, you don't quit, right? But he says, you have to have a dream. You have to have a very strong why, right? A belief in something that you want to achieve, a dream, right? And so do you have a very strong why? Do you have this visual picture of yourself being the exact health that you want, right? In the state of health that you want to be? What does it look like? Visually, what does it look like, right? This week, you have to describe your memory of being lean and slim. If you can go back and you can remember a time where you felt amazing, your clothes felt amazing on you, when you walked, you felt amazing. Maybe you were really fit at one time, you were an athlete, right? Then you had kids, now you've gained some weight. Can you go back and remember that? And can you put it into words? If you can't, right, then you create it. What do you believe it will be like? And again, from when you stand, what it feels like. When you sit, what your tummy feels like, what your back feels like, what it feels like to have lean arms, right? What your bra feels like on you for those of us women, right? For men, your belt buckle and is skin hanging over, or when you feel you've got nice lean abs, sexy abs, right? They look good, right? But first of all, they're healthy. What does that feel like? This is the important part of you being able to continue on your journey. And let me tell you, if you think this is like silly and nonsensical, you're kidding yourself, you're fooling yourself. This is very important, right? So this week you have to do that in words. And it'll change. I did it and mine changed, right? It evolved. It evolved as I got a little bit leaner. I said, okay, cool. That I feel this, but now I can see myself having this. I can see myself being this, right? I can see myself being this. And then it changed a little bit. So that's what you're going to do. Okay, so let's look at this week. You are going to start eating 3 to 3.5 hours. Right? You can have that kind of whatever you want to call the meals. I just call it eating. You can call it breakfast, right? In the morning you wake up and you have protein. 2.5 or 3 hours later, you can have breakfast, then you can have lunch, you can have a snack, you can have dinner, right? Set reminders on your phone to go off, right? Work it around. It might take a little bit of planning, but it's okay. You can do it. I'd like you to take all the labels in your house, and don't go crazy. It took me a year to clean my house of labels that I didn't want to bring home anymore. Some of the foods we ate, some of the foods I just packed up and took to the food bank, right? If they were still closed, right? We hadn't opened them yet. I just decided I'm not eating this because I now know what the label is telling me, right? Or just get rid of them and slowly stop bringing them home. But maybe this week, 1 or 2 of the food sources or fuel sources that you have in your home, change them up. Stop bringing them home. Now, protein, you must continue with that protein, right? And now you can even, I've said protein in the morning plus 3 more times throughout the day. You can now be looking at getting 1 gram per pound of your body weight. And it seems like a lot this week, but I do want you to Write out your dream for your health goal. Write yourself in the future. Right? How will you feel? How will you be? What will you be able to do? How will you look? Write that out. Take some time. The first time I did it, I cried a lot. Right? Okay, let's see what I got here. So again, you guys, if you haven't tested a case of Skinny, do that. Your coach can show you how to get your first case of Skinny with free shipping, and later on, your coach can show you how to get that case free, and you only pay the shipping, right? Your coach can help you out. We've got it's called a 3 for free program, right? And again, I always remind people, don't think you can go and buy all the ingredients and it's going to cost you less for a case of Skinny. It will not, okay? This is amazing stuff. And as well, we've got our fuel and our energy, right, that you might want to try. Our protein source, and of course, this amazing drink here. I'll talk about it one time. But, if your kids are drinking things like Gatorade and, other sports drinks that you have, man, you got to try them on some energy. So good, and for yourself as well. So this is week 4. Thank you so much. Be sure to ask questions on our team page if you need to, and I'll be back with week 5 very soon. Take care, everybody.